Mord was to be a warrior, but he knew it wasn't enough to beat him. Daisley attacked back and voiced out that Mord may be strong, but experience was far more important. Daisley continued to strike Mord, while our MC seemed to struggle by the minute. The mighty Mord was grazed on his face. Instructor Daisley pointed out the fact that he already survived countless battlefields and near-death situations. He then mocked Mord's courage to request a god of combat spirit with him as the opponent. Daisley put emphasis on the fact that he was not someone Mord could look down on. Mord dodged his attack and jumped into the air, and as he landed on the ground, he admitted to himself that the instructor was right about the fact that he lacks experience. On the sidelines, Kessner continued to witness the duel. He noted that even though Mord was talented, his combat skills were still beginner level, and that experience was something that cannot be ignored. In his mind, if Mord loses, he would have to leave. He was certain Daisley would make sure of it. He then wondered what Mord would do now. Daisley taunted Mord, thinking he got the better of the kid. Mord then acknowledged the old instructor's skills aren't bad. His arrogance made Daisley bristle. The two continued to throw insults at each other as Mord geared up to use another skill. Daisley was confused at the energy the kid was emanating, until he realized that he was using the new blood and block. Mord elegantly transformed himself, having his eyes and hair turn into silver. Our MC then opened his eyes. Daisley stated that what Mord did was impossible, and as Mord walked closer to Daisley, he ominously relayed that it was his first time fighting like this, so he wouldn't know how to hold back. Our MC then uttered that Daisley could just resent him if he ended up killing the old man. In the Verna's bloodline, after going through divine blood awakening at the age of 15, they are able to use the divine blood powers, although most of them stop at using the powers to increase their mana pool. While that allows them to gain incredible power, if someone were able to control divine blood in its entirety, they would gain immense power comparable to none. They couldn't believe that Mord, a 15-year-old, could already use divine blood powers. Even Kessner was stunned. He thought to himself that even he who was considered to be the most talented amongst the children took 4 years to awaken his divine powers, and yet Mord has done it with only 8 days of training. Daisley, too, couldn't believe it. By looking at Mord's silver eyes, he was certain that he had awakened his divine blood powers. He thought this was impossible. Mord informed Daisley that he will only be losing his pride if he quit now. The kid asked him if he still wanted to continue. The instructor was still delusional and confident that he wouldn't lose to a beginner. Mord swiftly approached him, reminding him that he was the one that declined his offer. Daisley exclaimed that the kid's attack will have no effect. The instructor couldn't brace Mord's attack and was sent flying. He wondered if this was the power of the divine blood. Mord asked him if his attack was too strong as he was just testing it out and still can't figure it out. Daisley still couldn't admit that he was losing to a 15-year-old. He can no longer use his left shoulder, but he thought he would lose everything if he were to be defeated there. He brought out his sword with the intent of eliminating Mord. Mord, in the middle of the attack, asked him how long he was going to protect his weak pride. But before they could strike each other, this old man was able to increase his speed and outwit our MC. Daisley was able to break through the attack with sword impulse. This was intended to remind Mord that no matter how strong the kid is, the instructor was still above him in terms of battle technique. Kessner witnessed this and noted that Daisley deserves praise for that. But then, Daisley was shocked by what he saw. As for the Vernar's family's strongest weapon in defense is their body, a sword impulse would be a mere tickle for someone like Mord. Mord, completely unfazed, called out that Daisley has no right to be an instructor. Daisley was frustrated that the sword impulse he trained for decades was nothing against Mord. He found it unbelievable. He kept on swinging his sword at Mord, but the kid did not budge. Mord was disappointed. He told Daisley that the instructor still acted all high and mighty despite being this weak. Daisley was infuriated and asked our MC who he thinks he was talking to him like that. Mord caught Daisley's sword with his bare hand. He explained to the instructor that being of the bloodline of the god of combat, they are able to fight with their bare hands as no weapon is stronger than their bodies. He asked Daisley if really thought his attack would damage him. Daisley screamed in pain as Mord overwhelmed him with his powers. He finally surrendered. Before Mord, he fell to his knees. The kid told the instructor that he will let him live if he accepts defeat, and if he doesn't, Mord will kill him. Daisley thought that he was never able to face off against the kid. He then finally accepted his defeat. The crowd cheered but also found the events unbelievable. Kessner, impressed with the kid, wondered how much stronger he'll manage to grow. He commended the kid for the great battle. In another castle, Mord's name was being called out. The person, wearing a black cloak with a hood up, expressed that the kid was amazing after hearing about all he's done. The person turned out to be a woman with long silver hair. She revealed to never expected to see a monster like Mord. The woman was Erna Vernars, the seventh traditional bloodline of Vernars. Overlooking the castle, she guessed that something interesting might happen. The next day at the castle of Archduke Vernars. Archduke Vernars was seated on the throne while Mord looked up at him from below the steps. The Archduke told him that it seems like he was already an official warrior and heard that he easily passed the god of combat's spirit. Mord confirmed this and stated that he was there to collect his reward. The Archduke noted his guts and asked if he requested the god of combat's spirit just so he could become a warrior. The kid replied that he just couldn't watch the instructor give up on his duties. While going down the steps, the Archduke mentioned that the strong ones are those who are right. That was why he had no problem with Mord's actions. The Archduke thought the kid hid his strengths, and he then demanded to know why. Mord explained that he was just being careful since that was the first time he used it. The Archduke could tell it was a lie, but he let it go. He then asked Mord if his wish of challenging the god of combat's grave was still true, to which the kid answered yes. The Archduke's assistant then interrupted to ask the Lord to rethink his decision. He expressed that people would complain if the Archduke allowed Mord to challenge it before being officially announced as a warrior. The Archduke was enraged by the assistant as he questioned his decision. The assistant immediately retreated and asked for forgiveness. The Archduke iterated that a promise is a promise. He allowed Mord to challenge the god of combat's grave despite not knowing his true intent. Mord knelt on one knee and thanked the Lord. Mord smirked and thought that he finally had the chance to collect his first world affirmment. Kessner and Mord stood before the entrance to the god of combat's grave. Kessner informed him that only one person can enter at a time and that unless the person dies, no one else may enter. Mord thought that it was a lot bigger than he expected. Kessner expressed his disbelief that the kid would get to challenge it first. Mord replied that he too didn't expect it. The Viscount then told him to be more psyched as this was due to his efforts. He advised the kid to just come back alive. Mord thanked Kessner as he walked towards the entrance. Mord felt an odd energy just by standing in front of the entrance. The god of combat, Vernars, has never faced death. He fulfilled his destiny as a human and only left our world to become a god in the heavens. Mord pushed the gates of the god of combat's grave. The gates opened to a blinding light. Mord walked through the light. In his mind, 7 years from now, Aiden will manage to find a world of fragment inside. Mord entered the god of combat's grave. He thought the world of fragment should still exist there at this point in time. The gates closed after him. Mord was now inside god of combat's grave. He was surprised that it was different from the grave that was described in MWDW. There are 6 different layouts, but only one of the 6 was revealed in MWDW. He knew that each layout will have a seal. He needed to find that. He thought the seal was supposed to be a stone statue that represents the life of the god of combat. A creature seemed to observe Mord as he roamed the place. Mord noticed that the place looked unrealistic. It looked like it was only finished halfway. He then noticed something in the corner of his eye. A creature known as a hellhound advanced toward him. It had red eyes and fire emanated from its mouth. Turned out there were 2 of them. They growled at Mord, who was hoping he wouldn't have to face too many monsters. The hellhounds jumped to attack Mord, but he was able to defeat them easily. Mord walked away from the defeated creatures, noting that they just tired him out for no reason. Mord stood before something and it looked like he found a seal. The statue was of the god of combat defeating Etin during his youth. He wondered why they used it as a seal. RMC then gathered his energy to prepare for something. Mord jumped toward the seal. He found a statue of the god of combat when he was only 10 years old and the god looked huge. Mord used his divine blood, transforming into his silver eyes and hair. Strings of power emanate from and around him. He walked towards the statue of the god. He let his blood drop on the statue. He thought it would have been hard to find it if he didn't have a clue about what he was supposed to do. The kid wondered who would have thought to drop blood onto the statue of the god of combat after awakening their divine blood. Our MC then got back down after doing the ritual. He thought he should just be grateful to be the first to claim it. He then left the statue to find the others. Unexpectedly, the head of the statue of the god of combat moved, seemingly looking at Mord walking away. It also started to have cracks, giant snakes, wolves, and an army of the dead. Mord had to beat a number of monsters. He was sure he had moved far enough for another seal. He noticed that the monsters kept appearing out of nowhere. He had no way to avoid them as the alleyway was small. He was face to face with a giant snake, thinking the trail for the god of combat would be straightforward. He then punched the snake with immense power. He figured he just needed to kill the enemy. Another flock of monsters appeared flying in the sky. They looked like ravens with 3 red eyes. Mord was relieved that at least he doesn't have to face them if he was on the ground. Since the moment he entered this grave, he already managed to find 5 of the seals. He noted that it was not far until he finally gained the world of ferment. The further Mord went in, the more mana he sensed. Due to awakening his divine blood 5 times, he doesn't have much mana left. He stopped in his tracks. He looked up, seemingly intimidated. He had arrived at the 6th seal. It was of a dragon with horns on its head. He noted that the statue was bigger and that climbing would be a hassle. A loud stomping noise surprised Mord. He was faced with a giant ogre. Ogres are monsters that are dense in mana and have bodies on par with those with physical reinforcement level 1. The ogre grunted at the unfamiliar kid. It then smashed its giant fist toward where Mord was, breaking the cement. Luckily, Mord was able to evade the ogre's fist. He thought this one was not an ordinary ogre. Normally they are about 4 meters in size, but this one looked taller than 5 meters. The ogre aimed at our MC again. The kid managed to escape a split second before the ogre's fist connected to the ground. Mord then retaliated by striking the ogre in its face. He continued bombarding this creature with his attack. This was barely enough to push back the ogre. It then counterattacked, and it was able to catch our MC, surrounding its hand around him. He then threw the key to the ground. Mord connected to the ground with immense force. He guessed he wouldn't be able to defeat it with just impulse. Once again, the ogre stomped towards him. It was aiming for another hit. Its giant fist smashed the wall greatly. It then smirked because it was sure that his attack smashed and killed the kid. At the same time, Mord awakened his divine blood. The force of this awakening was enough to send the ogre flying. Mord, now transformed, expressed that he would have died if he was a second late. The ogre rose and growled at the kid. Mord, on the other hand, was in the air aiming his power at the ogre. He hit the ogre with his fist. The kid didn't think he would have to awaken his divine blood. Now standing on the defeated orc, he reflected that he had been conceited, thinking he would be able to defeat it without his divine blood powers. Mord got off from where he was standing. He then proceeded on jumping towards the top of this dragon statue while realizing that battle knowledge and education make a big difference. He resolved to start over from the beginner once he was out of there. He was now faced with the last statue of the god of combat. He noticed something off about its height. He pondered why this Archduke Vernars was smaller, but he didn't dwell on it. He let his blood drop on the statue of the god, thinking the world of ferment is finally his. But after a few seconds, nothing happened. Mord was still there standing before the statue. He wondered if he did something wrong. According to the MDWD, he should have obtained the world of ferment by now. He walked away from the statue to go back to each of the statues, but he halted as he unexpectedly heard the voice of the god. The god's voice told him that he was hot-tempered, which was expected from being his descendant. Mord looked back, greatly shocked at what he was seeing. It was the god of combat himself telling him that it would be sad if he just left like that. The statue was alive. The reason Mord entered the god of combat's grave was that Aiden had obtained a world of ferment inside it. Thus, there's no way he would be aware of these events unless it was written in MDWD. The statue of the god of combat seemed to have transformed into a living being. He was trying to talk to Mord. Mord was wary and thought, if this is a hidden trial. He asked who the man was, but the man just found him funny and inquired about the kid's age. Mord awakened his divine blood and asked who he was again. The man was impressed, but an unexpected punch landed onto the old man. But the man took the hit unfazed. He then referred to Mord as his descendant and that he was rushing too much. The man then sent the kid flying. Mord hit the wall and looked hurt. The man was then aiming for another hit, exclaiming that he'll need to give the kid a proper greeting. He punched at Mord with immense power. The impact of this attack could be seen throughout the area. The surroundings were destroyed. Mord fell down on his one knee. He wondered whether he was seeing an illusion. He was sure it was a stone statue from a while ago. The man acknowledged him again, asking if the kid didn't really know who he was. Mord pointed out that he was aware he was the stone statue of the god of combat, Vernars. The man told him he wasn't wrong. He was what the god of combat, Vernars, left behind. His shadow as a human. Within MWDW, the god of combat's grave was known to have the remnants of his human self. So, this would be the grave most suited to his human form, not his godly form. However, in MWDW, it was recorded that the stone statues of his life achievement existed. Mord wondered if that meant his remnants were stone statues that had been imbued with his will. The god noticed that Mord looked doubtful. He decided to give our MC some proof to show him that it was real. The god also made fun of the kid, saying it looked like he was a lot weaker than he thought. Mord was annoyed and ready to fight him. The god was delighted to see him fighting back. He then aimed to hit Mord, but the kid managed to dodge. The god was a bit surprised at this. Mord created an impulse ball to attack the god. The god, still unfazed, told him he didn't expect the kid to use a trick like that. He then destroyed the impulse ball. This created a huge explosion along the area. Turns out, this was just intended to hide Mord's presence. But the old man was quick to realize that it was just a decoy. It annoyed him so much and proceeded to take Mord. He sent him flying, pointing out that only a weak and frail food would use a trick like that. He jumped upwards as well, and followed it up with attacks while they were still in the air. He exclaimed that he loves to defeat people with his bare hands. On the other hand, Mord wondered if this was a dream, as he was unable to defeat him even with the power of the divine blood. He found it insane for a stone statue to be that powerful. Punches were now coming in all directions, and our MC was not even able to react to any of these. The god looked down at the defeated kid, seemingly delighted. He then kicked him towards the wall for good measure. To Mord, that was now tired and sitting down with his back on the wall, the god asked if that was all he's got. The god expressed his disappointment. He pointed out that if this were a real battle, things would have ended him dying. Mord stood up ready to give another try, but he suddenly went back to his true form, losing his divine blood state. The god was surprised that was all it took to kill his divine blood state. He wondered if all his descendants were as weak as him. The god decided to stop attacking him and asked once again if he believed who he is now. Mord asked in return if he really was the god of combat, Vernars' shadow. The god told him to just treat him as Vernars. He told the kid that he's seen plenty of people try to face the dungeon, but Mord was the first one to awaken him. The god then asked him how long it's been since he was awakened. The kid replied that it was 500 years, which the god was stunned at. He couldn't believe it was that long, considering it wasn't that difficult of a riddle to solve. Mord then explained that it was likely since after the god went to the heavens, his two sons had a conflict about being the successor, and that the loser took a few artifacts, one of which had the secrets to this place. Mord also knew from MWDW that someone will find those artifacts and that person will become Aiden's aide. But he didn't tell the god. The god was surprised to know about this revelation. He just confirmed that his descendants really have his temperament. The god looked back at Mord, seemingly regretful that he had shown this side of him to the kid. He then faced Mord, still referring to him as his descendant, if he knew what it meant to awaken him. Mord answered him that he was not. Vernars asked Mord if he knew what it meant to awaken him. The kid answered that he was not. The god, shocked, asked if he was serious and why he spilled blood onto the stone if he didn't know. Mord told him he did it to obtain the world of ferment. He thought Aiden from MWDW obtained the fragment there, but the god of combat didn't appear. The god confirmed that he would obtain it indeed. Mord wondered if the god of combat can only be awakened when he is offered blood from his own bloodline. Vernars told Mord the meaning of the kid waking him up, and the reason why he left behind the shadow was to teach him divine blood embodiment. Mord wondered if he was going to teach him how to use the divine blood power. The kid then asked the god why, when he could just impart his teachings to future generations. The god explained that he wasn't sure if all generations will reach the stage of being able to teach the subsequent generations. He further explained that the talent of using divine blood is proportional to one's concentration of blood, meaning the later generations will find it difficult to properly use the divine blood power. Through learning, one can develop it to a certain extent. The issue is if there's someone who's able to teach that. That's why the god of combat's grave was made. Vernars expressed that it is a training ground for descendants and a mode of teaching. Mord thought that even if he could unleash divine blood, he cannot for long. That's why he will need a lot of training. Mord agreed to the training and asked the god how he was going to teach him. The god smirked and delightedly told him that the way was to fight over and over and over again. The kid was in disbelief. The god wondered if people have been spoon-fed nowadays. The kid then whined, pointing out that he will die before he learns how to do it, given that his ribs broke just earlier. Vernars told him his ribs don't even hurt anymore, which Mord realized was actually true. The god explained that in this place, both injuries and mana regenerate immediately. This old man also added that for this training, he will not be his opponent. Our MC then wondered and asked who will be the person that will train him. A few seconds after saying that statement, the surrounding walls in that place were shattered. At that moment, another Vernars entered flashily. This was like a superhero entrance. This guy then showed his grinning face towards Mord. He is the 10-year-old god of combat, Vernars, Mord thought. He noticed that his hair wasn't silver, and it seems like he still couldn't use divine blood. The god of combat who was able to embody the divine blood power had light gray eyes and silver hair. The grown Vernars explained that the 10-year-old was the best suited to fight Mord. The 10-year-old then remarked that the kid wouldn't be able to withstand one punch. The 10-year-old kept on provoking Mord, pushing him to just run away. Mord also noted how this guy has an overwhelming physique, but he knew that he still had the advantage in terms of strength. Mord used his divine awakening and told his opponent to use his as well. This guy just laughed as he heard about the term divine blood awakening. He then told our MC that if 10 would use this power, Mord would surely die. Mord proceeded to attack 10. In a swift moment, he was already in front of him, but it turned out 10 wasn't bluffing. The grown Vernars and 10 looked at Mord lying face down. They were in disbelief at how weak he was. 10 pointed out that he must not have much experience fighting, and the grown Vernars stated that they need to teach him how to fight. Vernars asked Mord why doesn't know how to fight when he's already unleashed his divine blood. The kid replied that he never learned how to. Vernars found this strange. Mord told him about what happened to him in the present world. The god expressed his disappointment and dislike about the way things have gone. He decided to help Mord go against the 10-year-old god. Reaching his hand out to the kid, Mord was elated about the one-on-one lesson with the world's strongest. The kid grabbed the god's helping hand. The god told him that he keeps getting beaten up by the same pattern of attack. The two now were facing the 10-year-old. Vernars told him to use 10's arrogance to break the pattern. At round 11, the god explained that his attacks are front-on and have no tempo control. 10 knew that and used his carelessness against him. At round 74, the god told him to change the trajectory of his punch. 10 was able to dodge this attempt again, but Mord noted that he grazed him. At round 272, the god advised him to make an opening. At this point, Mord saw how 10 moved and how he was going to counter. He finally was able to take a hit at the 10-year-old. Vernars was pleased, noting that the kid was good at putting whatever he earned into action. Mord was proud that he landed a punch. The previous attack from Mord was really powerful. The 10-year-old Vernars was hurt, blood coming out of his nose. He saw blood dripping on the cement. The young god had never been hit by anyone before and was in disbelief to see his blood. He assumed Mord had gotten used to it already. This also explains why his attitude changed. The kid looked uneasy. The 10-year-old created an impulse ball signaling that he won't be going easy on the kid anymore. This 10-year-old Vernars sent the impulse ball towards our MC, but he was still able to block it. But he was getting pushed back. He thought his body would be shredded to pieces if it went on. Mord looked at the old Vernars, hoping he would stop the 10-year-old. But this old man was just watching them. 10 caught Mord looking away. He used that opportunity to take a hit at the kid. Mord was sent flying. The kid groaned from the pain, while the 10-year-old was clearly satisfied. 10 was swiftly approaching Mord with his fist ready to take another punch. He wasted no time bombarding our MC with continuous hits. He then threw an uppercut, sending Mord upwards. The 10-year-old Vernars then followed it up with a kick, and it sent Mord to the ground. Our MC was now struggling. He could not use his divine blood or even move a single finger. He then noticed something was moving. The head of the dragon statue which the young god had thrown was falling and going to crush him. The statue crashed to the ground, destroying the cement. The 10-year-old, clearly having fun, wondered if Mord was still alive. After a while, a hand was raised. It was from Mord. He couldn't believe that he was still alive, but the statue fell on his lower body. He looked worried as he couldn't move his legs. 10 went down from the statue he was sitting on, surging to where Mord was. Mord couldn't awaken his divine blood with his mana completely drained. He needed 8 seconds to regain enough mana. Trying to bid more time, he slyly asked the young god if the Vernars bloodline had soft eyes like other people's. Something then flew towards 10's direction. Our MC found a way to stop him using a tiny stone. The young god was pained because his eyes were hit by a stone. This made his attack miss. This cheap trick made this young god furious, and he finally used his divine blood. He was aiming for another punch at Mord when the kid finally regained enough mana to awaken his divine blood. Mord was able to escape the young god's attack. He then proceeded to attack him and appeared from behind. 10 turned around to Mord, aiming a hit at him. But our MC was quick enough and landed a hit. He was proud to get a strike in, but the young god did not even budge. He asked the kid if he really thought the punch could crack his skull. He then grabbed Mord by the neck and was ready to attack him with an impulse on his other hand. Mord looked terrified, wondering if that was too much for him. The grown Vernars suddenly demanded the 10-year-old to stop. Mord was sent flying, but not by 10's impulse. The old Vernars stopped the young god's attack himself. He reminded the 10-year-old that their role was to teach their descendants. He declared the training to be over. The 10-year-old did not want to stop, but the grown Vernars just looked at him grimly. The young god suddenly came to his senses and released his divine blood state. Having witnessed this, Mord figured that the 10-year-old must be scared of the older god of combat too. He was relieved that he was alive. Cracks were forming in their surroundings. The grown Vernars remarked that it was time for the dream to separate from reality. He told Mord that he was going to give him a reward. The god of combat brought up Mord's other bloodline. He mentioned that the kid had the blood of a greater god and his father, Arita's blood. The god then blessed him with the body of the god of combat as a reward. With this, he will be able to awaken that authority. Mord noted that the term, body of the god of combat, has never appeared in MDWD. These two then said their goodbyes to Mord. But the younger one was still annoyed. Mord called out the 10-year-old Vernars. He told him he didn't think anyone from the present generation could beat the young god. He then thanked him as he learned a lot from him. 10 replied for him not to state the obvious. He also reminded Mord to look for a couple more sites that the god of combat has left other than the grave. The world collapsed. Mord woke up. What he experienced inside the grave was somewhat like a dream. Then, he was shocked by what he saw. A huge blue crystal was in front of him. It was a world fragment, a tool used by great ancient gods when creating the world. Aiden used these world fragments to gain immense power, eventually leading the world to an end. Mord collected the world fragment. Since he took it first, Aiden won't be able to grow as strong as in the novel. He asked for his understanding as an extra like him stole his power. Mord was confident that this was all for a real happy ending. Meanwhile, somewhere outside the palace, Erna was being called. She was lying on a tree branch when someone told her about Mord returning from the god of combat's grave. She already heard this news and now, she was making a plan. This will be about how she will approach Mord, and the first strategy was called the Nice Sister Plan. All children of the Archduke and children of all traditional bloodlines of the same generation were able to compete as successor candidates. Each successor candidate slowly increased their forces by gathering warriors of Vernars. Right now, there were 5 candidates in close contention for the position. The 7th child, Erna. The 6th child, Vidin. The 4th child, Huron. The 3rd child, Dren. And the Archduke, Aaron. Since Mord has cleared the grave of the god of combat, this had an immense effect on all of them. Tea was being poured into a cup. The person having the tea was sure all successors are going to be recruiting Mord on their side. It was the 6th child, Vidin. He admitted he couldn't let a talent like Mord fall into the wrong hands. In the castle of Archduke Vernars, Outer Castle, 1st Region. The male servant told Mord that this is where he will be staying. He referred to Mord as Lord. The Outer Castle, 1st Region is where the rich stay. Most ordinary warriors stay in the 2nd Region. Mord wondered if they were treating him well since he was of Vernar's blood and had awakened his divine blood. They gave him space to train nearby. They even gave him 2 servants, male and female. Mord thought he was finally living the life of a noble. Someone came knocking on the door asking if Mord was inside. The female servant opened the door. 2 men who looked like intermediate warders came in. They were there to deliver a message from the young master, Dren. One of the warders proceeded to read the message. Its intent was to recruit Mord to serve as his warrior. One warrior remarked that Mord was lucky to receive an offer to be his sword. They were stunned when Mord asked who he was. Mord couldn't remember who the young master Dren was. The 2 warders were enraged. They called Mord an ignorant fool. At that moment, another voice inquired if he knew of the young master, Vidin. All 3 looked up to see who just came in. The 2 warders called the man, Waltz. They asked him what he was doing there. Mord assumed Waltz was also an intermediate knight. He noted that the guy looked like he had something more than Vernar's blood. Waltz was there to recruit Mord too. The first 2 warriors argued they came first. Waltz taunted them by saying they lacked strength and would rather do things in order. They were infuriated. Waltz told them he'd welcome any offer to defeat them. He then advised them to get lost and tell their master they had failed. The 2 exclaimed to Waltz that he would regret what he did. They then left. Having witnessed the exchange, Mord figured not all intermediate warders are on the same level. Waltz turned to Mord. He formally introduced himself as Waltz. Mord called him Sir Waltz. He asked if calling him his senior would be more appropriate. But Waltz said Sir was fine and that the true ranking of a warrior is not about rage or rank. Mord assumed Waltz was there to recruit him to Vidin's side. He asked what was in it for him if he accepted his offer. Waltz expressed that he had brought a set of offers for Mord, but he will do whatever it takes to take Mord to his lord anyways, even if it meant beating him to a pulp. He said that Mord shouldn't be too excited because he defeated one old fool and asked him to get a grip on reality. Mord realized that Waltz's only intention was to take him by force. He thought that it was better since he'll see the effects of his training. Mord accepted Waltz's offer to fight. The 2 faced each other on the training grounds. Mord asked Waltz if he needed weapons as he doesn't seem like a bloodline of Vernars. Waltz replied he doesn't use things like swords as he has something much stronger. Waltz then showed him his Impulse Gauntlet. Waltz explained to Mord that the Impulse Gauntlet is an advanced skill beginner warriors like him could never imitate. He proceeded to tell him that because of this Mord had no chance of defeating him without using his divine blood. But then he was shocked at what he saw. Mord had successfully created his own Impulse Gauntlet. Waltz was taken aback. He found it impossible for Mord to learn it in just 4 days. Mord immediately attacked. He asked Waltz if he thought he would be the same after 4 days. Waltz noticed that Mord was also fast. He was having a hard time keeping up with the kid. Our MC then used his Impulse Gauntlet to attack Waltz, but he dodged it. The power of this punch could be seen on the cracks on the ground. He realized Mord was much stronger than what he heard. He wondered if it was possible to grow as strong in just 4 days, but he concluded that Mord must have been hiding his true strength. He underestimated him. At that moment, Mord's mana was amplifying. Mord informed him that this was just a warm-up. Wallace couldn't believe that Mord barely defeated Daisley with this much mana. He also thought it was impossible to grow that much mana even if he was a descendant of Vernars. He could only come up with one explanation. He confronted Mord on why he hid his true strength when fighting Daisley. Mord knew he would not believe him if he told him the truth. The two things that helped him grow his strength were the blessing of the body of the god of combat and the using the world of firmament as a mana source. Wallace realized Mord was not going to tell him. He admitted he underestimated the kid and decided to show him his real powers. Our MC was shocked as he saw Wallace's true power. This guy's body has started to transform into a different species. It also meant that this transformation confirmed Mord's theory that this guy's blood was also mixed with something else. In the novel, people who had the full moon curse appeared. They transformed when it was full moon, and due to going out of control, they attacked all the people they came across. Legacies who were able to overcome the curse used their power freely, a combination of beast and human. They were called lycanthropes. Wallace had gotten a lot bigger. His transformation was successful, but Mord knew that his mana was still above his opponent, so he started to attack. Our MC was able to land his impulse gauntlet, but as the dust settled, he saw that this was not effective at all. Wallace was able to block his attack without receiving any damage. Wallace stated that Mord's mana may be better than his, but his physique was a lot bigger and stronger. Wallace started his counterattack by repelling Mord's fist. This gave him an opportunity to land a clean hit. Our MC didn't expect this guy's speed. Wallace's punch was enough to send him flying to the opposite side. Our MC started to recover. He smiled as he received some damage from that attack. Mord noted that Wallace got stronger, but not to the point where he would need to use his divine blood. He was still above in terms of mana, so it balances out. Mord asked his opponent if they shall end it. Wallace smiled because he assumed that Mord was already admitting his defeat, but it was the opposite. Our MC was scared because he thought that if he would use his divine blood skill, he's not sure if Wallace would live. Wallace started to laugh because of Mord's attitude. He knew that Vernars were like this, but our MC was on a whole different level. Mord then clarified that what he meant by his statement was to finish the match in one go. At that moment, Mord decided to use the world of firmament. He was ready to go all out. The person who possesses the world of firmament is able to use it by drawing out their mana. Mord successfully drew out its power with the help of the training process that was stated in the novel. He can be blessed with the god of combat's body for 20 seconds. With this, our MC was confident that he would defeat Wallace with his new power. Wallace realized that the kid really was a monster as he increased his mana even more. This beast decided to go all out as well and started to send these red slashes. Mord just stood there calmly as these attacks were approaching him. Right before these hit him, he was able to gracefully dodge them. Wallace didn't expect the sudden increase of this kid's speed. Mord was already in front of him. Our MC quickly charged his fist with mana, and he was able to release his racing gun towards Wallace. The beast was sent flying. It also ended up destroying Mord's place. The other warriors were worried about Wallace's condition while Mord was worried about his house. They quickly checked up on him. The beast was lying face down, concerned about having to see his master. He recalled Vidin telling him that Mord would be a huge help for their position. Wallace was surprised as the young master asked for his strength. Mord, on the other hand, was worried about the maintenance of his house. He heard that the warriors that went to check up on Wallace called out that he was safe. This beast was safe and sound, but something was different. His body was filled with an ominous aura. It also seemed that this one was out of control. Our MC didn't expect this one to still have a trump card on his sleeve. Mord was already thinking about using his divine blood state to finish this fight. Someone then yelled for them to stop. All of a sudden, Wallace was hit by an unknown attack. This attack was so powerful that it made Wallace back to his human form. A woman with a bulky physique and blonde hair then appeared. The other warriors quickly paid their respect and called her Miss Erna. They asked why she had attacked Wallace as he was just carrying out Vidin's command. Erna explained that Walsh would have died if they had continued. She revealed that Walsh hasn't mastered this second transformation yet, and it made him lose his mind. Erna said that if Walsh woke up, he would agree with her. She then asked them to take him to the recovery room. Erna turned to Mord. She revealed that she wanted to meet him even before. Mord noticed that they had a similar build, except her face was cute. Erna told Mord to call her older sister Erna. This introduction also had a weird aura around it. Mord looked disgusted and declined. After that incident, Erna was now back in her room. She was clearly embarrassed about what happened. Her assistant reminded her that he told her to stop with the friendly older sister plan. He explained that Mord was an illegitimate child who wouldn't like it if someone from the legitimate bloodline suddenly approached him and asked to be friendly. Erna, on the other hand, thought the kid would appreciate the gesture. Erna was surprised that Mord defeated Walsh without his divine blood. Her assistant was on the same boat as Walsh's skills are that of a high-ranking warrior. The news that Mord defeated Walsh had spread, and the competition to recruit Mord had become higher. The two were still strategizing on how to persuade Mord when someone interrupted them with urgent news. Erna asked what it was. The man exclaimed that Mord was announced to accompany Viscount Winsall on the obstruction mission. After some time, Mord looked at his house and was impressed with how quickly the hose was repaired. He didn't expect that Walsh would pay for the damages. Mord saw something inside. It was Sir Kessner. Kessner told Mord that it looks like he's been causing a scene ever since his return. He asked the kid if couldn't live a quiet life. Mord then replied that he had no choice, as everyone had been dying to get a piece of him. He asked the Viscount what he was there for. Kessner invited him to join him and his subordinates in a task. The task was to prevent demonification. Dungeons, as stated at the start, also exist in this world. But unlike normal dungeons, those places where demonification occurred were those with outbreaks of monsters. It is a purposeful act of demons trying to take over humanity. There are 3 stages. Stage 1 is when an unknown vortex appears. Stage 2 is when the vortex solidifies, making it impossible to enter. Stage 3 is when the nearby land gets corrupted and demons get more powerful. If not stopped by Stage 3, a dungeon break occurs. Both worlds will be connected and demonic beings will start entering the human world. Kessner informed Mord of the dangers and that plenty have died through these missions. That's why he won't force the kid to come if he declines. Mord thought that it would be worth taking on this risk. Given that he was getting tired of dealing with the offers, he figured accepting the offer might be the perfect opportunity. The kid finally accepted the offer. He asked whether he starts training in the afternoon, looking determined. In the training grounds, Kessner apologized for the last-minute decision and announced that the kid will be coming along for the mission. He introduced Mord as the kid who defeated Instructor Daisley and the intermediate warrior, Walsh. Mord looked over the warriors and assumed that since they were Kessner's men, they were at least advanced warriors. He was sure they were concerned about someone like him joining their ranks. He thought he just needed to prove himself. He was faced with a warrior that was about 180 cm tall and had an awesome build from training and experience. The kid was determined to take him on when the warrior grabbed his hand. The warrior turned out to be really jolly. Mord was surprised at the unusually friendly reception. He realized that they were all accepting of him. Kessner asked for their attention. Their leader reminded them to focus on working together for the next 10 days. In the meantime, he will be challenging the god of combat's grave. He asked Eriksson to take care of Mord. Eriksson, the friendly one, introduced himself and another warrior called Riquet. They are both advanced warriors. Eriksson explained that Mord's role will be to work with Riquet and support Sir Kessner at the center of their formation. He asked them to get along. Mord wondered how he was supposed to get along with someone as emotionless as Riquet. Eriksson then started their training. 10 days later, Kessner was coming out from the god of combat's grave. The warriors congratulated him and asked if he would like to eat. He declined as he still has another mission to attend to. Kessner wondered if Mord had gotten used to things. Meanwhile, at the training grounds, a lot of powerful blows could be seen. Kessner arrived here and he was quite shocked at the progress they have accomplished. He noted that Mord was completely different from the god of combat's spirit. He couldn't believe that he managed to grow even stronger. Eriksson noticed that the Viscount was back. Kessner asked about Mord's training. The warrior recounted that they focused on his basic abilities first and now are teaching him how to use physical reinforcement to nullify demons. Kessner asked his perspective on the kid. Erickson told him that the kid was quick on the uptake, but the more surprising thing is he was able to keep his divine blood awakened as long as Riquet. The Viscount was surprised at this, considering Riquet had awakened his divine blood 12 years ago. They found the kid unbelievable. On the other hand, Mord was too focused on his training. He didn't even notice Kessner. This kid was having fun. He remembered when he was stuck in his hospital room doing nothing. He thought that at least this time, he had a clear goal for his life. Every time he learned something new, Mord could feel himself getting stronger. He felt like he could do anything now. After some time, they now have to move to the mission area. Kessner asked if they were worried about the mission, but Erickson told him of course not, and that he was sure they would be ready for anything with Mord around. Kessner was worried about Mord being able to work with them within just a few days, but it looks like he was mature enough to know his role and adjust it as necessary. The Viscount asked Mord once again if he was sure he could return safely. Mord answered him with yes, and that he was eager to start the mission. All 7 of them proceeded to start their journey. Kessner made sure they got plenty of chances to fight. The group of warriors arrived at Cliff. Kessner quickly noticed something with the dungeon. The second stage of demonification has already begun. More violent energy has enveloped the area. The warder on watch greeted the Viscount. Kessner asked him what happened, as the erosion day was earlier than expected, looking alarmed. The warder replied that there seems to be another sign of demonification in the area. It was only a matter of time until the erosion. If 2 demonifications fuse together, the process of erosion gets faster, and the danger also increases. Erickson voiced out that they would have to try to wrap things up as soon as possible. The Viscount decided to forego their break and asked them to stay focused. They will enter at once and target the center immediately. This was officially the start of their mission. Before them is a grimly looking tower. Mord noted that it looked like a picture. He assumed that this huge tower-like structure was the center. They then heard the barks of hellhounds. These creatures have grouped up in large numbers. As soon as the hellhounds saw the group of Kessner, they started running towards them. Aside from the hellhounds, orcs also started to appear behind them. Kessner then gave them their tasks. Mord and Raquel will be using their divine blood state and perform a trap against the monsters. This signal gave all of them the permission to use their powers. Kessner, Mord, and Raquel led the charge and moved out. This group of warriors were really in sync. They immediately went and performed their roles. Each of them was strong enough to annihilate the monsters. They didn't have a hard time with this one. Some of them didn't even have the Vernar's blood, but they were powerful enough to be on par in terms of strength. While all of them were busy fighting, Kessner noticed something strange. The pace of the monsters coming at them was becoming fast. They figured the fusion of demonification started to occur. They needed to break through and deal with the core quickly. Kessner tasked Riquet and Mord to deal with the Cyclops as he dealt with Etten. Our MC was the first one to deal with the Cyclops. He started charging his fist with his mana. This guy charged towards these monsters without hesitation and overpowered them. Riquet observed that Mord was not scared at all despite his first time entering a demonification process. And since he got distracted, something appeared in front of him. He was surprised to see another giant red demon coming at him. This red demon started to condense its energy into a powerful attack. Zeke knew he was in trouble and he needed to set the trap quickly. Luckily, the giant red demon was hit by something. The one that conducted the attack was Mord. He came at the right time. These two then started attacking the demon. It even made the demon fall into its knees. Mord was also prepared to follow this up with another punch. He charged his fist with his impulse gauntlet skill and struck the demon. This was more than enough to seal the deal. Raquel witnessed all of these. He then realized that Mord was a monster himself. Raquel protected them from getting soaked from the blood of the Cyclops with his shield. Mord thanked him. Raquel told him the Viscount is probably finished slaying and is on his way to the center already. As they searched for their leader, Raquel saw something unusual. He found Kessner, but this guy was busy staring at something. Their Viscount was about to face 5 demons all by himself. Riquet got himself distracted again, and then something happened. Mord fell down from the ground and was transported to another place. Our MC was then greeted by someone in front of him. A monster that was seated on the throne was talking to him. And this one has this huge amount of dark aura around him. Mord wondered what kind of creature was that. Behind the throne was a door that connects the demon world to theirs. Our MC thought that this might be the deepest part of the dungeon. The one that was in front of Mord was the boss monster of this dungeon. This one smiled because he thought that his prey was now being served. This demon was named Baron Ultas.